So I'm super excited to teach you about Google Fonts because Google Fonts is one of those tools which makes your job as somebody who builds websites so much easier. And there's a lot of people out there who still aren't using Google Fonts. And instead they create a nice looking font in Photoshop, turn that into an image, put that image into the page, and that's horrible. That's a terrible way to build your website because one, it's another image you have to download to the client's machine, and that's a large cost. That costs a lot to download all of that data to the client's machine, so it's not performant. It's also not accessible, so people with screen readers aren't going to be able to read an image. It's not text. Their screen reader can't read it. They could read the alt tag, but not the image. And it's also not as searchable, right? So search engines can't index your web page as well. If you have a lot of text and images, right, search engines can't crawl that and see that like they can see text on a page. So using Google Fonts is great. It's super great. It allows you, and this is one of the main ways you could sort of brand and stylize the look of your site. It allows you to choose a certain look for your font. So let me just show you a preview of what you could do with Google Fonts. So like, here's a Google font. Here's another Google font. You could choose different fonts. So how do you use it? You go to Google Fonts. So just go to, your web browser and search for Google Fonts, and then click on Google Fonts, and you're going to come to this page right here. And here you can see all of the different fonts which are available. And there's tons and tons, like hundreds of fonts that are available. So this is a phrase I like. Mine is the forerunner of all things. As you think and act, so your world becomes. And so I'm going to paste that in. You could paste in your phrase to preview the text. Like, what's my text look like? And so now you could just compare. Like, oh, here's how it looks. And you could change the size, and you want to sort in order of popularity. And the reason is because there is a cost also to downloading a font to the user's machine. So let me just demonstrate that, okay? So over here, we're downloading, on this tab right here, we're bringing down 3 fonts. So if I go into Developer Tools, Control-Shift-I, I'm in Developer Tools, and I go to the Network tab, right? Well, it just shows me main CSS. But if I Control-Shift-R for a hard refresh, now it's going to capture all of that data when I ask for this page. And you can see here, it's asking for a style sheet. And it's the Roboto 400, 900, 300. We'll see what that means in a second. It's asking for that style sheet. And then it's downloading a font, another font, and another font. Well, that's like 14 kilobytes and 1 kilobyte. That's like 30, 12, 42, 43. That's like 44 kilobytes that are downloaded. That's not too bad. The average web page today is 2,400 kilobytes. That is nuts. That is so much data. My goal when I build a website is to be like 500, 700 kilobytes, super light. And you want your web page super light so it loads super fast because users are super finicky. And if you have a site which is like half a second too slow, you're going to lose a lot of users. You want your site to load in as little time as possible, which means it has to be made from as little data as possible. Because the more data you transfer to the user down the wire, the longer they're going to have to wait to get all that data and then display the page. Anyhow, you got to think about the cost of everything you're sending the user. So this isn't too huge of a cost. There is a cost there. But if you use the most popular fonts, like these are listed in order of popularity now, then those fonts might already be on the user's machine, which means their browser will check, is that font there? And if it is, they don't have to download it again. And since a lot of websites, a lot of people do use Google Fonts, since a lot of websites use these and these are the most popular, chances are they might already be on the user's machine, and that's a freebie. You get to use that font without them having to download it. Anyhow, that's the little bit about performance. You could also come over here and you could search different categories. Maybe I just wanted to see what handwriting looked like, right? So there's handwriting, different handwriting styles. Pacifico's cool. Indie Flower is what I used right there. That's Indie Flower. But I'm going to go here and I'm going to grab Roboto. And so and just show you how to use it. I do add to collection right here. And I could add several fonts to the collection. And then down here in the bottom, this is like your shopping cart. This is all free, by the way. You don't have to pay anything. This is like your shopping cart, and it says, hey, you've got Roboto added there. Now I'm just going to come over and click use. So whatever's in my cart, it's going to build the code for me to use it. So I click use, and in here, I could start selecting, whoa, there's a whole bunch of different weights for this font. You'll remember when we learned about font weight, we had 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. We had like 9, is that 9? Yeah, 9 different weights we could choose. Just adding that up. And so here you can see, well, maybe I want this one and this one. And if I select all these, this little page load deal over here just keeps cranking up, right? So I'm going to select, I think I had 900, 300, and 400 in the example. 400, 900, 300. And so when I do that, Google puts this code together for me. It says, add this code to your website. Cool. Well, where do I add it? This code right here is a style sheet. So I'm going to copy this and bring it over to my website. And here's my style sheet, right, in my HTML. And so question, just think through, the order of CSS matters. If I'm going to use this font in this style sheet here, which I do right there, right, I better sure as hell make sure I already have that font. So this better hit first before this hits, so it could bring that font in. And you'll notice that, they put rel style sheet at the end. I could bring that to the front if I want. And so I could just make it like mine, bam, like that. And they also added text CSS. That isn't required to be there. If you're superstitious and you're like, well, Google put it in, I'm going to leave it because Google knows what the hell they're doing, then leave it in. That's fine, but it works just fine without it. And then that's like that much less data you're sending over the wire. I kid you not. I think about every character. So here, right, I'm getting that font. And then over here, I'm saying, for every paragraph, use this font family, Roboto. And if not, go for a sans serif. And again, Google gives you that code right here, Roboto sans serif. So you just pop that in, and then you just set your font weight. Use the 300 one on number 1, right? Use the 400 one on ID number 2, and use the 900 one on ID number 3. And so when you do all that, you get this. All right, so that's Google Fonts. It's super cool. And don't forget that you should always monitor the weight of everything you're downloading. And by weight, I mean, what is the file size? So just come in here to Developer Tools, go into the Network tab, do a hard refresh. So a hard refresh is Control-Shift-R in Google Chrome, Command-Shift-R if you're on Google Chrome on a Mac. I think that's what it is. You could Google what a hard refresh is. And that's different than just a refresh, because a hard refresh says, let me get everything again for you. And then when you get that, you can see, okay, what am I downloading? What is its size? And you could start to inspect it, right? So you saw me coming over here, and, well, I haven't showed you this yet, but you could click on this, and then it brings you into the headers. So I could look at the headers, but I could also preview that. So this is the font I downloaded, right? And here is the CSS. So it downloaded all this CSS, and that's somehow or another like Google geniuses CSS coding, like how they're downloading the font to the user's machine, right? But they download the font, the CSS to get the font, and then they download the fonts. And there are the different fonts that are being downloaded. And you could close all that right here. So that's really cool stuff. And these developer tools are really nifty and handy. And that's how you use Google Fonts, which is one of the greatest tools every web developer has available to them today.